Hi guys, I'm Candice. This is Mothership, and today we are talking all things sex. With over 93% of parents saying their sex life is not what it used to be, we need to sort that out. Today we are going to talk about sex after baby.
Ooh.
You're
I'm aroused.
Oh my God!
So many people feel this kind of pressure to have sex quite quickly almost, but actually it's the last thing on your mind you could possibly think about. Whether you've had a cesarean or whether you've had a vaginal birth, I think it's also, there's something around this idea of just being touched, where if you've got a newborn, why would you want to have somebody else actually touching you? So
yeah, absolutely. The key players in sex, i.e. your boobs and your vagina, have got different kind of roles. That they gave birth, they don't look the same. And I just remember, you know, when my boobs had kind of become these big milk jugs, the last thing I wanted was my husband to touch them. And it took us 9 months before we had sex. But we were both ready. And I think Will was tired, I was tired, and our relationship was, you know, it was in the bin at that stage. We didn't like each other, frankly. We were just functional. We were trying to survive. There was nothing sexy about it at all. So I think it just took a while just to regroup. And I didn't want to force it, because then you resent it. You want it to be a kind of nice thing as well.
yeah, I think that sort of feeling really angry towards your partner is quite a common thing. People just hate their partners, because I think it's almost okay to hate your partner. It's definitely not okay to hate the baby.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I used to shout at Paul if he sneezed in the night and the baby woke up.
Oh, yeah.
But my reaction was totally irrational. So I would literally be like, I'm going to hire a hitman. You know, he's going to go down to the canal and I'm going to hire a hitman. And while nobody's looking, the hitman will push him into the canal and he'll be dead. And my life will be a lot better. That was definitely not a rational thought. But I know that I was so tired and overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And I could only really vent on him. So we definitely didn't get things moving for maybe even a year, actually, because I didn't like him at all for a long time.
Dreadful people.
Yeah.
Oh, awful.
I'm due with my second now, but I think with the first kid, nothing prepares you for how they're going to steamroll your life. Like, especially not when it comes to sex. Like, who's doing that?
No, and it takes so much admin. Like you've got you get the baby to bed, and then you sit down on the couch and you just want to go to sleep.
Yeah.
Just like, don't touch me. I've got all the Instagram to get through. I've got to eat all the biscuits. I mean, I've got jobs. But yeah, it's hard. And also, I had the baby in bed with me. I co-slept, and for the first 9 months, Will slept in another room, which I highly recommend. No sneezing. No
waking up.
No wake. So that worked out really well. Yeah.
And I feel like sometimes what we tend to do is it's so far down the list of priorities.
Yeah.
And certainly, you know, we sort of have this sense that it's something that's on the to-do list, but it's probably alongside sort of getting white leggings for the nativity play, you know, looking to see if there's any stuff to put in the sandwiches.
Yeah. You do have your physical urges, obviously, but to have sex with someone you love most of the time, it's, you know, that's an important connection.
That's a bit sad in a way, because I think, I mean, I love my partner, and so I can say really terrible things about him. He doesn't mind. But I do feel like I've put him somewhere further down the list, and I think he often feels like I'm nagging. And so I've just started now and then just trying to say something like, it might be, your hair looks really nice today. And it's really terrible, because I don't even say those little tiny things, and he says lovely things to me.
Throughout the whole idea of conception, pregnancy and birth, they're really just forgotten. It's like, oh, the baby's here and we're doing all the work. And I literally used to look at my partner and think, oh my God, you must feel really crap. Like, oh, get me that, do this, do that. And it's like, it takes a lot, I think, especially after the baby, to consider their emotions, especially when it loops into sex. Because what is interesting, and none of us can answer here because there are no men, but I'm sure there are situations where the woman after the baby wants it and the guy's like, but I don't even quite see her the way I did before.
Your roles are being redefined.
Yeah.
You weren't just, you know, Sally and John anymore. You're mum and dad. And the baby does take priority, because you don't know what the hell you're doing. You're in a mess.
And then doesn't the sex change? Does it not become more of a love making than like a?
I always hate the minute someone says love making.
You go,
I can hear it in my R. Kelly coming on. But yeah, you're right. I think you are right.
Bit of Barry White.
I think one of the problems is we almost put too much pressure to sort of actually have sex. And I know, like, when I talk to other women, I mean, it doesn't always have to be sex. It actually is about intimacy. So you get out of the habit of touching one another just generally. So, you know, you may be in the newborn stage, you just like, stay away, you know, I just want to have my own space. But actually, it doesn't always have to be, because that's quite a big build if you go like, right, we've actually got to have sex. And for the guy too, to get in the mood.
Yeah.
But you could just say, do you know what, let's just snog. Like, I really am almost on a campaign, I think, to bring back snogging. Because
bring back snogging. I love it.
Because I just feel like actually it's a really strange thing with couples that actually you stop doing that and you stop doing maybe some of the things you did when you first started going out with one another, which was maybe a bit more experimental. So, you know, I've got a friend who really managed to kickstart her love life just through telling her partner that she wasn't wearing any knickers. And he almost had like a heart attack.
Well, she did do it at Nando's. I mean,
did it at Nando's. Well, she did exactly. She did it in the Nativity. There was sort of this kind of idea that actually he'd no longer, and I think that's what we were talking about with roles. She was no longer the big, you know, sort of human wet wipe anymore.
Yeah.
She was a living, breathing, sexy woman. It's quite a funny concept, because I remember I got this very high-powered breast pump, so you could sit on the sofa, and I can remember, I think we were planning to go out, and he's all done up, so he's got ready, he's got his outfit on, and you sort of almost, you don't care about displaying your body, so I was just sort of sat on the sofa watching Strictly with this pump sort of going
and it makes
like
this
this.
And
And then you sort of
and your
wonder
nipples
why
like really
they don't
long.
necessarily think you're sexy, because it's like, you know, what is that? You know, and of course it's completely natural and normal and all of that stuff. But I think it's almost like we have to almost introduce a bit more privacy again, because and if you've had a vaginal birth, the kind of things that they're seeing, it's beautiful, but it's quite harrowing, I think, at the same time.
Yeah.
Because my partner had witnessed the C-section, he was so like, I don't really think it's time. I don't want, is this, like, how are you feeling? So it was a very delicate moment, to say the least. I just think, like you said, there's so much judgment that it's almost, you feel guilty if you're having sex, you feel crap if you're not having sex. No one really knows the right time, and I think it all boils down to us, as per usual, trusting our bodies. Yeah.
And talking about it, I think. But that's the other thing, is sort of how do you talk to talking to your partner about it? Because I think a lot of, well, men and women, if you're sort of saying we're not having sex enough, it's almost like you're kind of blaming them in a way. And so I think you've got to find some way of approaching it where actually it doesn't feel like you're kind of making each other feel bad. And I think, you know, there's quite a nice little exercise you can do where basically you write on a bit of paper the thing that you like that your partner currently does, that turns you on, and then you also write down the thing that you really don't like, and they do the same to you. And it kind of, you write it on paper, which might sound a little bit childish, but then you read it to one another. And I think, again, it's just sometimes it's a miscommunication, because sometimes with couples, like, they might read the signs and think that you're up for sex and you're not.
Yeah.
Or they think that something that they're doing is sexy and it's not. The other thing that I always think you have to really avoid, which lots of couples do, is referring to themselves as mummy and daddy.
Oh, yeah,
Which sometimes happens. And again, that's kind of like, so your role then. So, I mean, Paul will sometimes say, does mummy want this or does mummy want that? But not in a sexy way. No. Unless you're going to do it as a sexy thing.
No, incorrect. No, you're not.
It's not a good idea.
Yeah. And what about like weekends away? Like one of the things that we said, we need to have a weekend away, and which actually puts pressure on you to have sex. And we're just sort of like going, so should we do it before dinner or after dinner? It just felt like that sort of hanging over your head.
I feel like that about date night, because I just think date night is such an awful concept. It becomes like, right, I've done the date night, we had sex. Do that again in 3 months. You know? So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We have our best fights usually when we've like built it up, like, you know, in 2 weeks' time we're going to go out for a very nice meal, and then we end up talking about how much we hate each other's families. I mean, it's really erotic,
especially with wine involved.
Yeah. Like, do you know what really pisses me off about you? I'm like, ooh, arousing.
So, ladies, as none of us are professionals, I've done what we all do, which is consult Google.
Good one.
And I've asked the internet for the top tips on how do we have more sex. So, number 1, seize the minute. Number 2, date night. Now, we've gone there a bit with date night, but we'll dive in. We'll dive into that in a minute. Number 3, create your own code. Create your own foreplay language. Put on Peppa Pig, then you have a clear 5 minutes. Number 4, leave love notes around the house. And number 5, schedule in regular sex.
Interesting.
Well, I mean, seize them in. I can understand. Sometimes I've got 2 kids who are a bit older. If they're engrossed in a film, and husband and I look at each other going, "Come on, I'll send him an aubergine emoji, and then we're on."
Foreplay?
Yeah, that's emoji foreplay. I'm really for it. So I'll send him an aubergine. He'll send me 2 peaches. Ding dong, lock the doors. 10 minutes.
Okay, so yeah, seize the minute. I think that works, and it keeps things fresh and playful. Yes, I like that.
So
one.
that kind of contradicts the schedule in the sex.
Yeah.
life, though.
Yeah, there's kind of 2 schools of thought, I think. Some people are really sort of advocates of scheduling. Like they say, actually, because the problem is that actually you don't feel desire spontaneously. So like, I'm not going to suddenly, and this is the problem with films actually, and box sets, is I think that often when you see sex happening, the woman is lifted up onto the counter and then taken. And this is like, I remember watching The Affair, and they were in a long-term relationship and had 4 kids. And I was like, that doesn't happen. Like, the woman just suddenly doesn't go, I'm so overwhelmed with desire that you've got to take me at this particular moment. So I think actually scheduling might be a good thing, because otherwise you're working on the idea that you're just going to suddenly feel turned on.
One of the most erotic things my husband's done recently, he spontaneously cleaned the lint filter out of the dryer.
The man presenting himself as helpful and attentive.
Kind.
Yeah, yeah. That
Funny
really
that,
helps push those feelings, because you're reminded slightly of why you got with them in the first place.
Yeah.
Which I think is the massive block that the kid puts in between you and the person. It's like, why do I like you again?
For us, like, we have a small house. You can't have the wild, crazy, fuck me kind of sex anymore. It's like, shush, just get it over and done with. That's fine, stick it in. Great, get the bog roll. It's so good. You should come round.
I got a whole like image in my mind, and it was very visual.
Shut up. I just remember, like, we were banging it, and then like the headboard kept banging. We had the window open. I thought, fuck, the neighbours can hear this shit. They don't want that.
This is sounding really healthy to me. This is good.
Oh yeah, I'm excellent at sex.
I'm really good. But that's part of the pressure as well, and that's why I love women coming together to talk about this, is because everyone has this sense that all of their friends are at it all the time.
No.
And the reality is that it often isn't the case. And it's just so nice for people to come together and talk about the good and the bad and the kind of ugly side of it. Because we all want to stay in our relationships. I think that's the thing, is that a lot of people get divorced because sex has gone out the window, and we're educated to think that we should always sort of be having this great sex and be attracted to our partner. And I think in long-term relationships, apart from kids, even if you park having children, it's a challenge. You know,
there's so many things you're forewarned about sex after baby that I just didn't find. Like, I wanted to have sex really soon, but that's because, like, legit, I was as dry as the Sahara during pregnancy. I was shocked at myself. I was like, what's going on? And I was literally praying. I was like, when this child comes out, I pray my sex drive comes back. And it did, but I had a C-section, so it was not icky, but it's even more like, oh my God, am I going to split in 2? Because you're just like, should I be doing this? And I almost felt guilty for wanting sex so soon, because I'd been told that it would be completely the other way.
Yeah, especially as you're a new mum, everyone's saying, have you done this yet? You know, are you breastfeeding? All those things. And it's just one of those things you feel like a milestone that you should have in your red book. You're like, and had sex on this date, and baby laughed on that date. So I think, that's that kind of pressure too. And you've had it the other way. It's like, oh, am I going too soon? But that's that whole judgment thing as well. And that's what you and you're judging your own body, because your body has changed, and your husband's, I just remember he was just a bit tentative. It wasn't the sort of like, is this okay? You okay? Which is never great when you're having sex. It's like, does that hurt?
No,
I'm fine. Yeah. So you're just re-navigating each other's bodies, I think, as well, and what you like and what you want as well. And what you can do really quietly and really quickly.
I know. How should we leave this? What should we be doing to have more sex, better sex, or even get to the point where we're comfortable having sex after a baby?
I guess my top 3 things would be communication. Like, talk about it, tell your partner what you want, and then I think schedule it in, and also have fun with it.
I'm sort of similar in that I just think we touched on it at the beginning, but I think if you're actually not very nice to your partner at the beginning, then you're probably not going to be having sex. So just that simple thing of being nice to one another, complimenting one another, and sort of, I suppose, in a way, just trying to remember why you fell in love with them in the first place, which is hard at times. Try and notice the good stuff in your relationship, because that's the thing. If we take a step back, it's not about sex; it's about your relationship. It's actually making your relationship function.
So many times a kid comes along and your partnership gets put on the back burner because you want to be the best mum. And it's like, hold on, I created this child with someone I love. Hopefully you still love them. And it's like, how can I now have that person as 3rd or 4th down the list? For me, it really comes together when it's like, I'm going to work really hard at loving you as much as I love this new kid. To you guys, thank you for watching The Mothership. Are you having enough sex? When are you going to have sex? Do you even want to have sex anymore? If you feel comfortable, comment below, and I'll see you soon.